The Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has confirmed that its government will take part in talks with the country's opposition. It's been agreed that the discussions organised by the former Spanish Prime Minister José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero and the Dominican Foreign Minister Miguel Vargas will take place on neutral ground in the Dominican Republic. It follows months of political crisis and mass protests in Venezuela, during which more than 120 people have died. Mr. Maduro said the focus of the dialogue should be on peace and democracy in Venezuela. On Sunday, elections took place to choose candidates for the upcoming vote for governors. The governor of Miranda, Enrique Capriles, said negotiation was part of the country's constitution. Mr. Capriles also insisted that any talks should include representation from the United Nations and the Vatican. Opposition groups rejected suggestions that this was a resumption of formal talks, which broke down in April, and said this was an exploratory meeting that would not involve face-to-face negotiations.
European leaders have arrived in the Caribbean amid mounting criticism that they haven't done enough to help the victims of Hurricane Irma. President Macron, seen here on St. Martin, is visiting French territories, and he's promised to rebuild the islands as soon as possible.
Je ne souhaite pas que nous
I don't want an identical
Saint-Martin
reconstruction of St. Martin.
Ce qui s'est passé
What's happened is also linked to the fact that the buildings were too precarious, that the supply of services like water and electricity was too fragile, that the planning of the housing was no longer suitable for the risk involved. And so what I want is to make St. Martin a model for other areas.
Construire une île de Saint-Martin exemplaire.
10 tons of essential supplies, including medicines, arrived with Macron, and he promised more would follow soon. St. Martin was one of the islands hit hardest, with 11 fatalities. King Willem-Alexander of the Netherlands was also in the region on the last day of a visit to see for himself the damage to the Antilles Islands of Saba and St. Eustatius, as well as Dutch St. Martin's. Meanwhile, British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson arrived in Barbados on Tuesday, from where he was due to travel on to British territories devastated by Hurricane Irma. Britain has faced similar criticism to France over its response to the crisis.
According to Reuters, Tuesday, over 6.1 million homes and businesses in Florida and nearby states still don't have power after being hit by Hurricane Irma. Major utilities in the Sunshine State have reportedly mobilized tens of thousands of workers to deal with the outages after Irma hit early Sunday morning. According to FPL, Florida's largest utility company, its outages fell to around 2.8 million customers by Tuesday morning from a peak of more than 3.6 million the day before. However, some Florida utilities, including FPL, have warned customers that it could take weeks to restore power for areas that were the hardest hit by the hurricane.
Dozens of Air Berlin flights have been cancelled after an unusually high number of its pilots called in sick. The insolvent German airline grounded around 100 planes on Tuesday at hubs in Berlin, Düsseldorf, Hamburg and Cologne. Air Berlin is Germany's second largest carrier. Last month it was forced to file for bankruptcy after its shareholder, Etihad Airways, withdrew funding following years of losses. Bidders, including Lufthansa, are reported to be waiting in the wings to buy parts of the failing airline.
The European Parliament has said the EU wants the UK's continued cooperation on security, regardless of the deal struck on other issues. Earlier this year, Theresa May appeared to threaten these links if the UK's trade demands weren't met.
It's not, if you give us a good deal on the one, we offer you cooperation on internal external security. For us, it's absolutely key that there is a close relationship on these issues.
The comments come after the UK Defence Minister insisted his offer of military support wasn't intended to blackmail the EU into agreeing favourable trade conditions.
This is not a negotiating tactic. It's too important for that. We want to be very clear that the day after we leave, we continue to work together with the other European countries on security, fighting terrorism.
The remarks are unlikely to placate Eurosceptics at home as the government battles to get its Brexit legislation through Parliament.
The eyes down crew members almost at
There have been some new arrivals on board the International Space Station. A Soyuz capsule docked there on Wednesday, having blasted off from Kazakhstan 5.5 hours earlier. First through the hatch was Russian cosmonaut Alexander Mizurkin, who's on his second trip into space.
Alexander Mizurkin, the Soyuz commander for all of the events today.
American Joe Acabo was next to greet the 3 crew members already at the station. He was selected for astronaut training whilst working as a maths and science teacher and is on his 3rd mission. Last to arrive was another American. It's Mark Vander Hay's first time in space. The 3 team members will spend 5 months conducting experiments in orbit.
53 back at a full 6-person.
So thank you everyone for being here. We appreciate it, Mr. Prime Minister.
The war of words between the US and North Korea continued on Tuesday. President Donald Trump said the new sanctions didn't go far enough and more would have to be done, while North Korea's ambassador to the United Nations threatened the US with the greatest pain it's ever suffered.
Thank you, everybody. We had a vote yesterday on sanctions. We think it's just another very small step. It was nice to get a 15-0 vote, but those sanctions are nothing compared to what ultimately will have to happen.
But speaking at a disarmament conference in Geneva, North Korea rejected the latest sanctions outright, calling the UN resolution unlawful.
The Washington regime finally opted for political, economic, and military confrontation. The DPRK is ready to use any form of ultimate means. The forthcoming measures by DPRK will make the US suffer the greatest pain it's never experienced in its history. Thank you.
Although Monday's UN Security Council vote was unanimous, significantly including China and Russia, Pyongyang seems undeterred by the mounting pressure. The new restrictions on trade with North Korea might over time hurt its economy, but it's not clear if that will be enough to convince Kim Jong-un's regime to choose another path.
A Spanish court has suspended a Catalan law which outlined a legal framework for an independent state. The Catalan parliament passed a law last Wednesday which approved a referendum on independence, but Spain's government has now challenged laws linked to the ballot in the courts. It suspended the law approving the vote scheduled for October the 1st last week. Spain's highest authority on such matters, the Constitutional Court, halted the move by the Catalan Parliament while judges now consider whether it's against the country's constitution. The central government in Madrid claims politicians in Catalan only have the power to call an election, not a referendum. Last week, Spain's Attorney General, José Manuel Massa, issued a lawsuit against the president of Catalonia, Carles Puigdemont. Support for independence in Catalan has diminished in recent years, according to polls, but the majority of citizens there want to vote on the issue. Most of Catalonia's 948 mayors have already pledged to allow the use of public spaces for the proposed referendum, but the mayor of Barcelona, Ada Colau, has asked for assurances that civil servants involved will not risk losing their jobs. On Monday, hundreds of thousands of people rallied in Barcelona to support the secession from Madrid.
Televidendo momento para outro espaço comercial, agora o nosso Berg nos informe dan deportivo.